Well, hello and welcome to another edition of, or another episode of, The Mark Medley Show. And I haven't been with you in a while. As a matter of fact, the last time I was with you, the platform that I recorded this on looked totally different. They have revamped the Spreaker platform of which I normally record my podcast episodes on. Haven't been with you in a while and glad to be back. This is your host, Mark Medley. And I wanted to do this podcast on an experience I had a couple of weeks ago in terms of, as many of you have listened to me, you know or you've heard me talk about riding in the TD Bank 5 Boro Bike Tour. It's a 40-mile bike ride where we go through the 5 boroughs of New York City. And it's a 40-mile ride, and riders or bicycle riders from all around the world participate in that ride. As a matter of fact, this year we had 32,000 bicyclists from all around the world. So the title of this episode of the Mark Medley Show is, how is it that 32,000 bicyclists can ride together, but we still can't seem to live together? We still find ourselves in all these various conflicts, whether on the worldwide level or the local level, in the U.S., outside of the U.S., and yet, for that one day, the first Sunday in May, 32,000 bicyclists can come together and ride peacefully without incident. So as I was riding on that Sunday, the first Sunday in May, that's some of the thoughts that came to mind along with others. What else came to mind was, of the 32,000 riders, everyone followed the rules. They followed the rules of the ride, which is another thing that fascinated me, because I deal with children every day who refuse to follow the rules within the school. They refuse to follow the rules of the adults, constantly challenging authority, and we're constantly trying to prepare the students for when they get out in the larger society. For example, in an organized ride such as the 5 Boro Bike Tour that has rules and regulations, and the expectation is that you will follow them. So one of the rules of the ride was you will not wear earbuds during the ride. Now, to be quite frank with you, I wanted to wear my earbuds because I wanted to listen to my music as I pedaled along the way. But as I looked around, as I looked at all the riders around me, at 32,000 riders, I did not come across not one set of earbuds. Not one. And I looked hard because I wanted to put my earbuds on. I wanted to wear my earbuds, so I was hoping if I'd seen 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 more people that had theirs on, I would be able to put mine on too. But I didn't come across one rider that had his or her earbuds on for the duration of the 40-mile ride. They follow the rules. So again, what came to me was, how is it that when we do something such as an organized bike ride, or if a catastrophe happens and everybody has to pull together, how is it we can pull together at those times, but on a everyday, ordinary day, we can't seem to do that? And that's the type of questions that was coming to my mind as I was reflecting and riding and observing on that day. That 32,000, can you imagine 32,000 bicycles going through the streets of the boroughs of New York, and we did not have one fight, did not have one incident, no one yelling at each other. I'm not even sure if we had any accidents, as I have done the ride in the past, and I've seen some pretty bad crack-ups, because if you don't ride safely, it is real easy to get your back tire on, or your front tire onto the back tire of another rider, or get cut off or something. But I didn't even see any of that. Another rule for the ride was you had to have a helmet on. Every person in that ride had on his or her helmet. Again, following the rules of the ride. We were given a registration packet. We were sent the rules in email. We were given all the parameters of the ride. And everyone followed it. So again, what came to me is, why can't we do this in life? Why can't we follow the rules and regulations in life the same way we follow the rules in an organized ride such as the TD Bank 5 Boro Bike Tour? It amazes me how many people we come across that just refuse to do what they're supposed to do. Case in point, today is the 19th, last night on the 18th, my neighbors behind me, I guess they had a birthday party. Now, having the birthday party in and of itself, there was nothing wrong with that. They had their music blaring, the entire neighborhood could hear it. This is where we ran into the problem. The clock kept ticking. It was getting later and later into the evening, upwards to midnight. And one would think common sense would say, all right, it's getting late. Let's turn the music off. We may be disturbing our neighbors. But no, that did not kick in. It got to the point where I went out in my yard and I yelled across the fence. And of course, I don't think they heard me, or if they did, they ignored me because the music was loud. And I was asking them because my neighbor next door, she was also looking out her door as if to say, when are they going to stop? Because we have elderly people in the neighborhood, we have children in the neighborhood, working people in the neighborhood who was trying to sleep. And it's getting close to midnight and the music is still blaring. So once they ignored my request or didn't hear my request, I said, fine, now it's time for me to call the police. I'm going to get the authorities involved. And that's exactly what I did. I called the police. And I explained to the dispatcher, I understand there are far more severe emergencies that are taking place, but if you get a chance, please send a unit to such and such street between such and such block and block, because there's a house there and it's getting near midnight and they don't have sense enough to turn their music off. And I don't mean down, because down would not have done it. It had to be turned off. So a few minutes later, the officers must have gotten there because we heard the music first turn down lower and then ultimately they turned it off. But my point in sharing this story is, don't you think one would have done that on their own without having to be told? Don't you think one would have been courteous and considerate enough to say, you know what, there are other people in the neighborhood besides me, so therefore I'm going to be a good neighbor and turn my music down? But no, the same thing occurs, folks double parking in some neighborhoods on the street. They will sit there and have their conversation and make you wait, compared with them pulling off or getting out the way. So that goes back to what I was saying earlier. What is it about people that we're dealing with in 2019? And it seems to be more and more of them. Not to say that folks haven't always followed the rules or broken the rules, but it seems like it's getting more and more prevalent now. I don't know, it's because of the type of leadership that we have in the White House who seems to do the same thing. Our leader-in-chief down in Washington seems to kind of have this same attitude as my neighbors had last night with their music, like, forget you. I'm going to do what I want to do regardless. But that's what made it all the more fascinating for me with the bicycle ride. Because again, for that number of people from around the world who were on bicycles, not motorcycles, they were on any kind of two-wheel vehicle that did not have a motor, whether it was a unicycle, tricycle, bicycle, or sickle, whatever you want to call it, to make that 40-mile trek. And to be able to do it within the parameters and guidelines of the rules and without fussing and fighting and yelling and cursing, it was phenomenal. And see, I tend to look at things metaphorically. I tend to look at life or things or events as I'm going through them. I looked at them from a reflective or a metaphorical standpoint to kind of, parallel it with what's going on in life in general. And that's why I raised the question, how is it that 32,000, I keep emphasizing that number because if I'm not mistaken, last year I think we had something like 31,000, so we increased. But how is it that 32,000 people could peacefully ride bicycles through the streets of New York without incident, and yet we seem to not be able to live with each other? That's about it for today's podcast, but as always, I encourage you to check me out live on Saturday mornings as I host the Reading Circle with Mark Medley. You can hear me around the world as I web stream on gobrave.org. That's GOBRAVE.org. If you're in the northern New Jersey, New York area, it's on FM radio 88.7 FM. And I also encourage you to visit my website because everything is on there. All the different endeavors and things that I do, you can find it on the website. And I just launched it a few weeks ago, and I just checked my numbers. I have 442 visitors. I'm nearing 500, and the website is only a few weeks old. So I encourage you to go there as well. It's markamedley.com. markamedley.com. Again, markamedley.com. I encourage you, please visit the site and give some thought to the question of this episode. How is it that 32,000 bicyclists can ride together, but we seem to not be able to live together?